Starting a dropshipping business doesn't have to be expensive. In fact, the exact cost of doing it is only...
When it comes to starting a dropshipping business, the problem you'll definitely want to avoid is that,
and by doing this one thing that most people don't, you will dramatically speed up your learning and ultimately the profit that you generate from your business.
and if you're starting out with a smaller budget, one trick that can make you sales much faster is
the best way to maximize your investment isn't just to spend more, it's actually the opposite. Instead, it's to Welcome to the Dropship Unlocked podcast. I'm Lewis Smith, the founder of Dropship Unlocked, and with me is our client success coach, James Eardley. Now, when we're not recording podcast episodes or running our own e-commerce businesses, you'll find us helping aspiring entrepreneurs launch their own high-ticket dropshipping stores. So if you're ready to build your own 6 or even 7-figure online business, then head over to dropshipunlocked.com/start. Now, sit back, relax, and let's unlock your potential with the Dropship Unlocked podcast.
In today's episode, we're going to dive deep into a crucial topic for anyone that's looking to start their dropshipping business, and that is how to finance your dropshipping business. We get lots of questions, people asking how much does it cost to start? And also we're going to answer that question, but also tell you how to do it depending on the budget that you have. So Lewis, let's kick things off by talking about the finances needed to actually get started. Can you break down what somebody needs to get their dropshipping business off the ground?
Yeah, of course. Now, this type of e-commerce does require some capital investment. So you will need some funds to get started, much like with any business. And even though it's perceived as a very low-cost business model, starting with absolutely nothing is not impossible, but just going to take a lot of effort. And so my advice, if you have nothing at all at the moment, would be to just go and find some work to earn some initial funds, whether that's freelancing, whether that's getting a part-time job, just doing something so that you build up a little bit of a buffer that becomes like a runway for your business that allows it to take off. You need something to get it up and running, some fuel to start with, because you will have some very minor overhead costs, not like running a bricks and mortar traditional business where it might be thousands per month. But for example, the subscription for Shopify, the e-commerce hosting platform that we recommend, and then the subscription for Google Workspace, which is where we store all of our files, what we use for our emails and our work calendar, things like that, and some other tools that we can run through, typically are going to take you to about £50 per month in overheads to start with. Now, aside from that, you'll also need a budget for some advertising once you get started. Now, we recommend starting with between £10 to £30 per day. Once you're ready to start advertising your product and making sales. That's not going to be on day one. That's going to be down the line once you have some suppliers and you're ready to start bringing customers to your store. So you can just, at the beginning, start to just save that money, put that money aside. That's why it's helpful if you do have some savings or another income source initially, just to get the business off the ground until it can become self-sufficient and start to pay for itself, because you should be generating far more in profit from the sales that you make than the ad spend that you invested in getting customers to your store in the first place. So it's like you put £1 in and you get £5 out. So you put another £1 into advertising and you get £5 out. So that's the eventual scenario we want to be in. Doesn't always happen as simply as that, but we kind of scale our way up to that. And after the first few weeks, you should start to see that return on your investment if you're following the right strategies.
That's the key. With the right approach and the right setup, then you can start to see money coming back very quickly. And the thing with dropshipping is that, generally speaking, with every business, so business 101, there's 2 types of costs. You've got your overhead costs and your variable costs. And dropshipping has very, very low overhead costs. Perhaps one of the businesses with one of the lowest overhead costs to get started. Like say, Lewis, Shopify, Google Workspace, maybe a phone line. £50 a month is really reasonable when you get started with overhead costs. And then all of the other costs that are associated with the business, like buying products from suppliers or spending money on ads to generate sales, they're all variable, meaning that you'll only spend that money when you're generating sales. Once you've got a profitable ad return, you'll only increase your ad budget once you're profitable. So that is a variable cost, and you only spend that money when you generate sales. The same with stock from suppliers. Like I say, Lewis, not like those businesses like Amazon FBA, or if you build a new coffee shop, you've got suddenly loads of overheads to go into straight away. It's completely different. It's definitely the reason why. One of the biggest reasons why I started dropshipping was those low upfront costs and low overhead costs to run the business. So we've established that they're low cost, but there is definitely some capital required to start an e-commerce business. So there's going to be different approaches based on whether you've got a higher budget or a lower budget. And we can dive into those now. Perhaps first of all, how would you approach your business, or how would you recommend to somebody to approach a business if they have a high budget, like some money put aside, ready to go? How would you suggest that they approach dropshipping for the best returns?
Yeah, let's say you've got a higher budget, and in the context of this, again, we're not talking tens of thousands of pounds even. High budget in this scenario is like 5 to 10 grand. Like maybe you have 10,000 in the bank and you think, right, that's dedicated, that's set aside for starting my new business, which is peanuts compared to what it costs to start most businesses. So just bear that in mind. People go and take out loans for hundreds of thousands of pounds to start businesses sometimes, and they personally underwrite them, and it can be a disaster. So like this is very, very low risk, minimal compared to traditional businesses, but it does still require some. So that might take you 6 months, it might take you a year of just setting aside a little bit of your paycheck every month so that you have that available. But if you are in that category and you have a higher budget, you can afford to outsource some of those initial tasks that might otherwise take your time. So things like uploading your products. You might assign a supplier or 5 suppliers who have 100 products each. And so that could take you a lot of time, and you could be sitting there uploading products manually for weeks and weeks and weeks, when actually you could be making sales if you just dedicated maybe a couple of hundred pounds of that budget to a freelancer whose sole job it was to just upload products, and you pay them per product uploaded, or you pay them hourly, and you can have it done exactly how you want it. You could do the way I do it is I would do the first product myself, uploaded from start to finish, and I would record myself on a Loom video, and I would show exactly how I want it done. And then maybe I'd do the second and third. And then once I've got the process nailed down, I would then give that video to a freelancer from somewhere like Fiverr or Upwork and have them work their way through the process. So I'm not hiring someone on a full-time salary. It's like a freelance gig for somebody, and you'll find lots of people offering this service online. Just make sure that you test it first on just a few products to make sure that you don't hand them the reins and then they go and do 100 products incorrectly. So things like that, things like store builds, at Dropship Unlocked, we even offer our members the done for you store build process, where we'll actually build the store for them from scratch. And that can save you weeks of having to figure out Shopify design and having to customize a website. And also it will give you some funds to ramp up your ad budget as well, which allows you to get more people to your store and more customers through the door early on, so that you can start to learn which products are popular, which brands are selling, which brands are not selling, that you might not want to dedicate any more ad spend to. And so it just allows you more, I guess it gives you your time back, and it allows you to just move the train a little bit faster, because it's fuel. It's like the money in this case is fuel. It can fuel the product uploads. It can fuel the customers through the door. It can fuel, and it just gives you your time back to say, well, what can only I do? And in this case, it's probably signing suppliers and making strategic decisions about the direction you want to take your business in and how you want it to look and feel. So yeah, I guess question for you, James, like if you had a higher budget, is there anything else you do differently other than those things like outsourcing, product uploads, web design, ads, anything else?
Yeah, the way I see it is, if you've got a higher budget to start, and in this context, a few £1,000s put aside, ready to go and invest into a business that will generate an ongoing income stream for you, I see that as time saved. So it's finances that you can invest somewhere to save time on your way, to shortcut that route to success. And the ways that you mentioned there, Lewis, completely agree. It's time saved when you hire somebody to upload products for you, or you hire somebody to build the website for you, or you increase the ad budget so you get more data more quickly and more conversions more quickly, so you can optimize more quickly. Another way is training. So this is where training comes into it massively, is if you've got a budget and you invest it into learning, you also shortcut the learning phase. And the higher the budget, the more you put into training, the more one-to-one support you can get, the more in-depth step-by-step training you can get. So definitely it's a big advantage. If you've got some budget, you've got a choice. Either you put it into training and you shortcut the learnings, you learn from other people's mistakes, or you put that money into mistakes ultimately. And I learned this the hard way when I first got into dropshipping. I just started running Facebook ads. I watched a few YouTube videos and thought, I'm a dropshipper. Let's go. And it all came crumbling down around me because I didn't really invest it. I didn't invest in any training. I was watching a few YouTube videos, and it was only when I invested in the Dropship Unlocked Masterclass, Lewis, as you know, that my fortunes changed because I was able to follow a step-by-step guide and have one-to-one coaching through the form of Q&A calls. So yeah, I would definitely do that again. I would shortcut the learning by going straight to training if I had that budget to get started. I think it's an important point to mention. But for those people who are listening and perhaps they've got a low budget to get started with, but they're super keen to get involved with e-commerce, they can see all of the benefits of running a dropshipping business. What would you suggest for those people that are starting with a lower budget?
Yeah, it's going to be a bit more manual. I think you just have to accept you can either pay in time or money. And if you haven't got money, then you're only left with one option, right? Time. You're going to have to invest in time. So I would say at that point, if you've got a lower budget, you will want to focus on doing more of the work yourself. Like, for example, uploading products. Now, that doesn't mean that I would sit there uploading thousands and thousands of products myself manually, but I would speak to the suppliers that I've signed, find out what the top 10% best sellers that they have are, and I would just focus on those for each of my brands. And that might mean that there's only 15, 20 products from each supplier that I'm going to upload initially. And that's fine because it's the 80-20 Pareto principle. If I can just get the 20% of products uploaded that will generate 80% of the revenue, and this data is coming from the suppliers themselves, so they know this information, then I'm going to get the most results possible for the least input. Later, when I've got the profit coming in from those sales, I'll bring in a virtual assistant. I'll hire someone on Upwork or Fiverr, and I'll ask them to then do the rest of the products because that will then be their only job. It's just uploading products while I'm dealing with like the orders and, making sure the ads are running smoothly. So yeah, things like that. I actually don't think it's a bad thing because sometimes having too much money to throw into a business is a bit of a curse in disguise because it's like you almost feel like you can just wash your hands with the details. And that's a bit dangerous. When people come in and they're like, right, I've got 50K to put into this business, so just need someone to run my ads and like someone to sign me supplier, someone to upload the products. It's like, but what do you then understand about that business? Like once it's up and running, you don't know how to build the website. You didn't sign the suppliers. You don't know how to run the ads. What do you do if something breaks? Like, how do you know you're not getting ripped off by someone? Like, how do you do, because you don't understand the fundamentals, it can be a bit of a dangerous game. So actually, yeah, I think it's sometimes an advantage having less because it forces you to be more resourceful and it forces you to say, okay, I'm going to get stuck in. I'm going to roll up my sleeves and I'm going to learn how I get the most return for the limited amount of budget I have, like ad spend. Okay, maybe I can only start with £10 per day. Well, I don't want to spend my £10 ad budget per day marketing accessory items that are, £20. I want to dedicate that very, very limited budget I have on getting clicks on not just my most expensive products, but my kind of higher priced, best selling products so that I'm more likely to get a return for it. So if I'm getting sales at £500, £600, £700, I might be generating £200 or £300 in profit for each one of those sales. Now, it doesn't take many of those sales to then be at £10,000 in your business account in profit. And suddenly you're now in the first category. You do have money to put towards the business. You just had to do a little bit of that upfront work yourself. Now I've designed Dropship Unlocked around that around that second category of people where they maybe have, say, less than £10,000 available, i.e. we show you how to build the store from scratch. Yes, we offer a done for you VIP premium service as well, but we also show you how to do it so that you don't have to use that service. You have the tools there and you can use our theme. We have a premium Dropship Unlocked theme that's specific to the home turf advantage model that we use. And it's just kind of piecing together the puzzle pieces, putting your color scheme on it, your logo, your products, and getting it ready so that you can start to contact suppliers yourself. You can start to get your store ready yourself. And yeah, I mean, if you have a lower budget, it's just going to mean a bit more input. I mean, would you say, James, from your perspective, if someone's got less than, say, £5,000 to put towards this business, does that then mean that they just have to completely go it alone and do everything themselves?
Not at all. I think there's an element of bootstrapping with a lower budget, but in that position, I'd be looking to join more entry-level training programs that are out there. Still look for ones that offer step-by-step approaches, but perhaps go into like a monthly subscription form of training program, because they're easy to get into when you first get started. There's not that big investment that you need to have ready to go, but you still have the shortcut from learning from other people rather than trying to do it all yourself, because ultimately I think that ends up being more expensive through mistakes rather than spending it on training. But yeah, completely agree, Lewis. I think that there's an advantage to having a lower budget. There's an advantage to bootstrapping and really learning everything you need to learn, taking more time, being more deliberate with the money that you put into the business. I think that money works a lot harder for you when you are putting it to work, because you've signed more suppliers or you've uploaded more products. You focus on the best sellers. You've got your store in a great position before launching. All these things that you'd be doing because you know that you've got to get a bigger return on your investment more quickly. So now we've looked at approaches for how to get into dropshipping with different budgets. Across the board, how would you recommend that people maximize the investment that they put into starting a dropshipping business to get the best results?
Yeah, I think we've touched on it. And it does depend on, if you have, say, 10,000 plus to put into this business, or if you have maybe less than 5,000. If it's somewhere in the middle, then it's a bit of a mix of the two. I think the two approaches that we've talked about, but those are the two categories. And one is you have the luxury of being able to have a lot more of it done for you, which will speed up the journey, means you can invest faster into ads. Still means that you should be strategic about that investment and make sure that you're getting the most back for that money that you're putting into ads. And as you mentioned, the best way of doing that is to join a mentorship program where you're in a community of other people you can ask who are along the same path as you, where you can use templates, training videos, even done for you services that we talked about, where like we'll actually do that stuff for you. But I think making sure that you're not just blindly spending on ads is key, and that you are still doing it to make sure you get the most bang for your buck, and you're getting the most return on ad spend that you can, even if you do have the budget. Because there's one thing we know about Google: they'll happily take your ad budget and your money if you just give them the reins and tell them to just spend it however they like. We still have to be very clever and tactical about how we deploy that ad budget to get the most return. And that's targeting it towards your best sellers, targeting it towards the brands that are most popular and that will generate you the most sales. And on the flip side of that, we talked about if you're on the lower budget end and maybe you have less than 5K to put into this, you're going to do a bit more of that work yourself. But as you touched on, James, if you join a monthly program, you might not get the kind of direct mentorship of being able to have such hand holding along the way, but you can still save yourself from a lot of the mistakes, a lot of the costly trial and error by just having the training and the blueprint laid out to set yourself up for success. So either way, investing in the right resources will avoid costly delays along the way, and it will ultimately get you faster results. So I think either way, you're in a good place, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. Everyone ends up in the same scenario anyway, once you stick to it for long enough and you're not willing to give up at the first hurdle or the second hurdle, because they will be there. And it makes a big difference having a community by your side when you hit those hurdles, because you can then turn to people who've already overcome them and say, what did you do here? And then they say, oh, well, we did this, this, and this. And it just makes you feel less alone, I think, on that journey of entrepreneurship.
100%. Yeah, not to mention it's just a lot more fun, isn't it? Having people around you on the same journey, and you make some great friends while building a business. So I think the key point here is that you'll invest in a dropshipping business, but you can choose where you invest, either in training or in mistakes, as I did initially. So yeah, it bears true all the time. We get lots of messages from people who are getting started and are keen to know what to invest. But yeah, we'll now send them this podcast link to say, this is the best way to invest no matter what the budget that you've got. And we've mentioned about mistakes and avoiding mistakes. There is a Dropship Unlocked podcast episode that I'd like to point you to, so you know what mistakes to avoid that we see people do commonly. So this is episode 101. So cue that up after this one. It's called the top 5 dropshipping mistakes that cost you thousands. And so loads of lessons, loads of insights and things to avoid in that episode. Cool. So yeah, anything else you'd like to share with us when it comes to the right budget to get started with dropshipping?
No, I think allocating a proportion of your budget in education is definitely a worthwhile thing. Even though it feels a little bit less tangible, you will save yourself money over time because you could just pour £5,000 into ads and have nothing to show for it. Like you said, you followed a YouTube video of someone that was teaching Facebook ads. The difference with that is there was no accountability if it didn't work. You know, that you could have followed it to the letter and it just not worked. And then, I mean, you didn't pay them anything. They don't owe you anything, right? Whereas with a community and you're there, you can speak to the coaches, you can ask the community, you have that like two-way dialogue, and you can say, well, I've tweaked this and I haven't changed this, and you need that kind of nuanced understanding of where you're at. So whether you do have a entry-level budget or if you have a higher budget, either way, getting support, making sure you're investing smartly, and just getting around a community of other people on the same path as you is going to be so important in your journey. The best place to start is dropshipunlocked.com/start. Right there, we've laid out a step-by-step path for you to get started no matter where you're starting from.
Are you enjoying the podcast? We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment or a review and we might feature it in an upcoming episode. And for detailed show notes and resources, visit dropshipunlocked.com/podcast.
If you found value in any episode of this podcast, please could you take just 10 seconds to leave us a quick 5-star review on your favorite podcast app? It helps us more than you can imagine. And who knows, you might just hear your comments read out on the show. Thanks for being a part of our community. Your support helps us keep delivering new episodes to you every week.
No, it's that part of the podcast where we're going to answer a question that's come in directly from a listener of a previous episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast. So if you're listening today and you'd like to ask a question to Lewis or I, simply comment beneath the YouTube video version of this episode and we may just answer it on an upcoming episode. So this week, the question has come in from Peter from Belgium. And Peter has asked about how to handle shipping costs when a customer orders products from multiple suppliers. So he's wondering whether to charge shipping for each product individually, or if there's a better approach, like charging a standard shipping rate across the store. And he also mentions in his question that he's currently running a low ticket store and is considering switching to high ticket dropshipping.
Well, thanks for your question, Peter. There's a couple of questions in there, but we'll try and go through them. So in terms of delivery fees across different suppliers, if you have an order that comes from multiple suppliers, the best approach, in my opinion, will be to charge a standard delivery rate across the entire store if you can, if your margin and your profit margin can absorb that, just to keep things simple for both you and for your customers as well. So for example, if you were to offer free delivery on orders over £500 or £1,000, that's an arbitrary number. You can choose that as your rules, your store. And maybe you said a £20 delivery fee on orders under £500. That then makes it easier for you to set up in Shopify. And it's also a simple structure for customers to understand because it's kind of how most retailers operate on the internet. They'll be used to that, where it's like free shipping above a certain number, but you pay for shipping below a certain number. If you start getting into, oh, but if you order this product, it's this shipping fee. And if you order this product, they're going to think, why is that happening? Because they don't understand that you're drop shipping. They might just think that you have the products, on your shelf and that you're going to send them out. And they don't need to understand it either. The important thing for them is that they get a nice, easy experience and that the item arrives with them in a good condition. So yeah, charging separate shipping fees for each supplier would complicate things for you and for customers. So instead, flat rate shipping cost structure or shipping fee just streamlines everything. It makes your business easier to scale up. And it just means that you can add more suppliers as well later without having to worry that like, oh, this supplier charges me a £25 shipping fee, whereas this one it's free, whereas this one it's 15 and this one it's 50, right? And this is that point is actually where high ticket drop shipping is favorable. And so this kind of answers your second question there, Peter, because you have larger profit margins. So with those larger profit per order margins, you can absorb some of the additional shipping costs if you need to. So with higher ticket products, you can offer free shipping, even if your supplier charges you, say for shipping on like a 400 or 500 pound product, but you pass that, you offer it free to your customer, you can just absorb that. Because if you're making £100, £200 profit, just take the £20 hit on it and instead make £190 profit on that order, or £180 profit. Take the hit, and that larger margin from high ticket products allows you to have that flexibility to absorb the shipping cost and still make a good profit afterwards. It's also a very attractive incentive, free shipping for customers. And it will definitely improve your conversion rate as well, because people see it and they think, oh, it's free delivery. Okay, yeah, I'll order it. And they're not put off. So just if you can absorb some of that in your fee, which you should be able to do with high ticket drop shipping, because the profit margins are higher, then it's a win-win for both you and the customer. So hopefully that answers your 2 questions in one there, Peter.
2 for 1. Yeah, great question, Peter. And completely agree. It's the way that I approach it as well, with a standard shipping fee across the site, even if customers order from 2 or 3 various suppliers with the same order. Just keep it simple. And I guarantee by doing that and keeping it simple, you'll more than make up with more sales for the additional shipping costs that you might have to incur by having multiple suppliers delivering for the same order. So cheers, Lewis. It's now time to highlight a recent review that we've had for the podcast. So a big thank you to Sima. So Sima Channel 3863 is her YouTube handle. And she shared her thoughts on a recent video that we put on the Dropship Unlocked podcast YouTube channel. Not a podcast episode, just a video on YouTube. That video is called Reviewing a £100,000 Shopify Dropshipping Store. And Lewis and I went in the store as a customer, looked around and offered our advice how to get it from 6 figures to 7 figures in dropshipping sales. And she said after watching that video, definitely make more videos like this, very insightful and helpful.
Good stuff. Thank you so much for your review, Simon. Really glad to hear that you enjoyed that particular video. And what we'll do is link that video down below in the show notes and the description of this episode in case you want to check that one out. Now, before we wrap up here, would you mind if we asked a small favor of you before we go? If you enjoyed today's episode, could you take a quick moment to leave us a review? Your reviews help us more than you could imagine, and it helps us reach more listeners and improve our content. Plus, we might just read your review out on our next episode.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast. We hope you are leaving with new insights and inspiration to fuel your entrepreneurial journey.
To kickstart your e-commerce business, head over to dropshipunlocked.com/start. It's the perfect place to start and get access to resources that will help you build your business from the ground up.
And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more episodes packed with strategies, tips, and success stories. Plus, if you enjoyed this episode today, a 5-star review would mean the world to us, and you might even get a shout out on the next episode.
Thank you for choosing to spend your time with us today. We can't wait to bring you more insights on the next episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast.